welcome to Procurement Pivots, the podcast for procurement professionals wanting to navigate change successfully and create career success on your own terms. I'm Donna Bowden, procurement career coach and founder of Narrate Your Career.
And I'm Laura Sellers, executive coach for procurement and founder of Coaching for Procurement. And between us, we bring almost 25 years of supporting and working with procurement professionals. And it's fair to say we've navigated many of our own career pivots along the way. And now we're here to help you do the same.
Each episode will share practical strategies, honest conversations, and expert insights to help you confidently tackle the changes and challenges in your procurement career.
Let's get started.
Hi everyone, and welcome to our latest episode on the Procurement Pivots podcast. Today we're going to be talking about obstacles. And why did we choose this topic, Laura?
Well, we've been looking through our library, I guess if you could call it that, of our different ones. And we do talk about challenges. We've touched on limiting beliefs, but obstacles are a main reason for why people come to us a lot of the time for coaching. They're looking to move through a challenge and they want some support to do that. So we actually thought it would be quite beneficial to think about some different examples or different types of obstacles that our clients might be coming to us with.
Yeah. And it's felt like it has been a particularly difficult year, I would say, for a lot of people, those in roles, those out of roles, trying to get roles. Certainly I've experienced in the conversations I've been having, a lot of people are feeling stuck, and it feels harder and tougher and more challenging to kind of move forward. So we just thought it would be a good topic to kind of share, hopefully some insight that for those of you that maybe are feeling that way, like firstly to know you're not the only one feeling like that. There's actually a lot of people kind of feeling that way, but hopefully to give you some tips and help with how you can help to move yourself forward as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say, obviously, from your perspective, at the point of somebody's career, you will work with them about that feeling of being stuck is a very common thing. I was thinking from my perspective as well with the obstacles, like people, I guess the metaphor, not for me to raise a metaphor, I know, but to talk about feeling like the rug is being pulled from underneath their feet is how some of my clients describe it. So it's not necessarily in looking for a new role. There's been restructures, there's been changes, there's been movement within the team. So it might not be that my client is moving on, but they've had team movement going on, and that's taken away from their ability to grow strategically the team within the business. So yeah, obstacles are interesting because they come up quite often in different contexts, as you've just described, as I just described. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting topic.
Definitely. So we were discussing before coming on to this, weren't we? Like some of the different kind of, obstacle areas that we see most frequently. Do you want to kind of share some of the headline sort of areas that we were talking about earlier?
Yeah, well, when I was trying to think about how best to present this in terms of obstacles, I see it in three different categories when I think about the work that I'm doing with people and how it shows up. There's the obstacles that show up in the organization. So when you're battling to have an impact and obviously in the case of many of my clients in procurement, and you're fighting against the system, you're fighting against not necessarily against it's not intentional fighting, it's just you're battling, you're struggling, you're trying to grab something. And again, that rug being pulled from under you because a change happens that has a ripple effect.
Yeah.
So that's a type of obstacle that can come up. And then there's the obstacle of other people, that where you're coming across tricky stakeholders. And for me, it's not necessarily about an individual, it's about the type of individual. And that's the work that I do. Is like, okay, what type of individual could this be? What tactics, what strategies do we use? And then finally, my favorite one to go to, self, the obstacles that we put in our own way. So they're my three headlines.
Yeah.
How does that align with your headlines, Donna?
Yeah, I mean, I think I thought about it slightly differently, and it was kind of just two categories really, and it was the obstacles that we sometimes create for ourselves, so the self piece versus the internal versus everything else, I suppose, the external. And yeah, look, we're meeting clients at different points in their journey often, and some of the common external factors that I'm seeing are often market driven factors. Again, a lot of people are coming to me after that change, that restructure, that transformation has happened, and some of them are entering the market for the first time in a very, very long time. And the market is very different to what it was. And it's always going to be different if you're also entering the market at a much more senior level than you once were, because yeah, it's a totally different way of kind of moving forward to that next thing. So yeah, for me, um, it was the internal, what we put in our own way potentially, versus those kind of all those other external kind of factors.
Okay. Shall we start there then with the ones that we put in our own way, whether we know it or not?
And that list is long, right?
It can be, indeed.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, there is a really long list actually. I would say that um, the topics that come up really, really frequently. But yeah, I think a lot of people have these own kind of internal blockers, like confidence blockers, self-belief, procrastination, overthinking, imposter syndrome. We've covered that, haven't we, on a previous episode? So yeah, there's a lot of things. Fear as well. I think a lot of people's decision making around what they do or don't do can often, it's linked to the worry and concern and fear of various things. What other people think is
Mm.
often a really common one. So yeah, I think there's an awful lot, there's an awfully long list, I would say, of kind of potential obstacles that many of us, and I include myself in this, can sometimes kind of put in our way, and it really does stop us from moving forwards.
Mm. Do you find that when they come to the coaching with you, that they're aware of what those personal blockers are? Is that, do they come, they say, I'm holding myself back, or this is holding me back, or does that become uncovered later on?
Yeah, good question. I think it's normally uncovered through the
Mm.
work that we do, I would say. I mean, I think some of those things, so self-belief, confidence, like, a lot of clients will be coming saying, look, I don't feel confident about this, or I'd like to work on kind of, how I'm projecting myself or how I'm telling my story. So I think some of them, it's there from the early conversations, the first conversation often, but I think a lot of them come through over time. And I think also, like, your relationship develops, doesn't it, over time, and the trust builds, and a lot of people will become more and more and more open about kind of how they really feel as that time goes on, and as that relationship develops. And I think sometimes actually, yeah, we just don't, like, it takes talking about it, sharing it, sometimes for the first time, like, to even recognize that that is the thing. I think sometimes people, like, some people haven't even thought about some of these topics previously, or they've not necessarily kind of had the space to reflect themselves. Many of them haven't ever said those words out loud. So I think some of it, yeah, I'd say probably more of it is it gets discovered along the process, but some of it is there from the beginning, and that's the very reason why they're coming to work together in the first place.
Yeah, that's a great point. 'Cause like you say, as the trust builds with your coach, you'll find that things that can become more uncovered. And I think this is where I really like the description of what working with a coach can be like, about the coach holding up a mirror.
Mm,
So, and it's not a judgmental mirror, right? It's a mirror that just helps somebody to sort of get all of those things off their chest and out of their head, out there to go, okay, is this a confidence thing? And confidence is an interesting one, because we can be really confident in certain areas of our expertise and our abilities, and other
yeah.
areas we're not. And I think that's also another really interesting aspect of talking it through with somebody, because we can start to really break it apart. And I think I have mentioned before on one of our episodes about I like to think of it as throwing all the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle out and putting it back together again, and actually thinking about, which part do I need now? Because sometimes confidence can seem so overwhelming, or whatever these obstacles are, the lack of something, like they can be so overwhelming, they stop us from doing anything.
Mm.
Whereas we can really break it down and say, okay, well, what can we call upon already? What do we have?
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to think what the context of a coaching session that I had last week with somebody around. That was it. So we were talking about, I've got a client who's new to role, and they were thinking, oh, I don't know enough about the category, I don't know enough about the organization. And when we worked through it, we realized actually they knew more than what they thought they knew, because we broke it down into those little pieces. And then they were able to identify the next steps as they walked out the coaching session. So yeah, I think, based on what you were saying about it coming apparent as
Yeah.
the time goes on, there is that thing for me as well about, well, let's not tackle the whole thing. Let's just
Yeah.
start with that small piece and go from there.
Yeah. And so are you finding then with the clients that you work with, like you said, it is also being uncovered over time, but are many of them coming to you in the first instance saying,
Mm.
hi, I'd like to work together because I've got this obstacle of X, how are they coming to you?
It's such a good question. I'm actually just trying to think. I think, do you know what? Most people are aware that they come,
Mm.
and I also do like a pre-coaching questionnaire with them. So
Yeah.
they and I say this is a stepping stone. You share as much or as little as you like. We're not
Hmm.
wedded to this. It's an opportunity for you to reflect on what's going on and what you're bringing with
Yeah.
you to the sessions. So I do actually thinking back on certainly my most recent clients, there's definitely an openness when they first come, because even plucking up the courage to speak with a coach,
Yeah.
that before you even agreed to work together and that you're a good fit to work together,
Yeah.
they've already decided, oh, I need to speak to somebody about this. I need to get this off my
Mm.
chest. So yeah, I do think they're aware of it. What I've noticed over my time of coaching, it's some I'm laughing because if she's listening, my sister will tell me, you remember everything. But I do. I've got this knack of going back and saying, and like spotting patterns for people. So they might not remember things that they've said, but I've picked up on it. And then I present it back to them, like that mirror analogy that we're talking about. So,
Mm.
so I think that's the other thing, is recognizing where I see things that they might not see. And that's what,
Yeah.
that is what a coach does. You'll be doing the same with yours, won't you? So yeah, that's an interesting thing. Shout out to my sister if she's listening.
Hiya.
Hi.
Oh, my family haven't watched this at all.
Yeah.
I haven't even shared it with them, weirdly. Um, so what are you seeing then? So if we focus initially on that kind of self piece, so what are some of the most common blockers or obstacles that you're experiencing that maybe it's discovered along the way, but those things that are kind of holding people back or stopping them to kind of move forward to where they want to get to?
So usually for many of my clients, they've they're in a position of leadership. They're in a very senior procurement role, but there's something that they want to sort of overcome in their own minds. So they've got confidence in their abilities.
Yeah.
It's more around the when something's happened in terms of the politics that they have to deal with, that has sort of
Mm.
maybe dented their confidence a bit in that way. And so this leads probably into the second part, of the second bucket that I was describing around about the others, where they've got to a very senior level, so they know that they're good. But then there's somebody that has either really chipped away at their confidence, and it could be a line manager, it could be a tricky stakeholder, they might be sitting in their past, or they might be in their present. And so they're that's something that we tend to work on. It's not the main motive for what they're coming for. A lot of my clients come because they just want to push themselves further. They're high achievers. They
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
see what else they're capable of. They want to
Yeah.
take their procurement team to new heights. They don't come going, oh, I need to necessarily uncover lots of things, but we
Yeah.
have capacity and the depth to do that if they need to. So I would
mm,
definitely say that often there is somebody who has chipped away at their confidence, and we just need to help. I need to help them process that and
mm,
help them decide what they're taking with them and what they're going to leave behind, and reinforce that those beliefs that they might have picked up from that individual, whether it's explicit or not,
mm,
um, then we can sort of just process and work through it so that it doesn't
yeah,
impact their confidence for the long term.
yeah,
I would
yeah.
say that's probably at the moment one of the main ones.
And I think
Yeah.
that's really interesting that you say that, because look, we're working, I suspect, with similar types of people, but often for different reasons.
Mm,
And a lot of the clients, they're coming to me because there is some kind of move on the horizon for them. But interestingly, when you talk about that stakeholder dynamic, like, they're absolutely not coming to me for that.
mm,
But sometimes the reason why they're not feeling as confident about their external, internal positioning, like some of the time, like that's what you then uncover. It's like some of those kind of confidence knocks along the way, and
mm,
actually they're not related to changing jobs, moving jobs, applying for jobs sometimes, but some of those knocks, they are those everyday kind of experiences with other people, and that's the thing that's then kind of stopped them in their tracks a little bit, and it's now holding them back in terms of their confidence to position themselves for what's next, and
mm,
go to that next level of role perhaps. And yeah, so it's an interesting one that has come up. I'm thinking of a few of the clients that
mm,
I've worked with recently, and yeah, that, like, yeah, you just, I mean, over time you kind of unravel and unpick, don't you, these different things that have happened. And mine is really, it's really forward looking, and it's really, it is normally centered around some kind of decision about a move. Do I, don't I, how do I,
mm,
what do I want, etc. But sometimes, yeah, that reason why that person is not feeling as kind of gung-ho and like kind of, full of excitement and confidence for that thing that's next is there might have been this, like, sometimes even a series of events. It's not normally just one thing, but it's like the restructure followed by that conversation with the stakeholder, followed by the fact that the business has appointed someone externally without even considering, it's like a sequence of things that have then over time kind of chipped away at the confidence that had been built. And actually, a lot of people, like you say, we're really fortunate. We both get to work with really successful procurement professionals that have done amazing things. And a lot of them have had a really, like, I'd say upward trajectory, and they've seen the kind of quite fast paced growth in their career. And then suddenly these things happen. And it really, for some of them, I think it can really, really, like, stop them in their tracks, because they haven't experienced that before. And they've just had this like upward journey. And then all of a sudden, like, they're really starting to question everything.
mm. Yeah, and it's like once we've had one thing, it sometimes attaches itself to another thing, and it can become the final straw for a lot of reasons, which
Mm,
might mean that they're looking for a move. I think, like you say, it can definitely, it's that worrying about what others think, right? It's a very natural human behavior and concern that we all have. Um, and yeah, it's definitely it's not so much the looking backwards as well. Like we don't go and process, well, they said this and then they
mm,
said that. It's okay, how's it sitting with you now? And it's
mm,
very much in the present. And then what are we choosing to take? Because every experience that we've all had in our careers will form some kind of resilience or learning for us in the future. Because unfortunately, and I love what you say about that trajectory, then something stops them in their tracks, because that's a very common thing that happens to people. They've reached those lofty heights, and then they might stay at a senior role for quite a long time.
yeah.
And these challenges, these obstacles, these other people, they will come along. Tricky stakeholders will always be there. You're not going to
Mm,
get rid of one and then that's it. There's always going to be a type of stakeholder that you might struggle with because they're a different personality type to you.
mm,
And also from a procurement perspective as well, it's not just a tricky stakeholder in terms of an individual, someone who's, I don't know, like a very argumentative person, but it's also the type of category or stakeholder I often find with many of my
Yeah.
clients where it's, oh, marketing. Marketing. I'm going to
The
pick on
enemy.
marketing, I'm sorry, but it comes up a lot. Um, where there's a feeling about dealing with that type of stakeholder in terms of the area of the business that they represent.
Mm,
So sometimes we also have to do some unpicking between the individual that they're talking about who's tricky and the category that they represent.
mm,
And sometimes we
yeah,
have to create that. And it sounds like I'm doing really deep work with them. It might not be some deep work. It might
yeah.
just be an incisive question that I throw in there going, okay, is this or is it that? You know,
Mm,
so I find that really, really interesting. And I get fascinated in certain fields of coaching, like systemic coaching. I really get fascinated by where you're thinking about the system that you're part of as well. So yeah, so just to bring it around for that others part, I think in terms of working with a coach and you're saying around the, positioning themselves and somebody's chipped away at their confidence, I really like to do a lot of work with people, and I think I would give anyone advice to look at how can you deal with those types of people rather than attaching it to one individual.
mm,
So once you have the tools or the
mm,
awareness to go, okay, so this type of person, and I think we've brought it up before, like it might be they have an insights profile or a
yeah,
disc profile where they're a particular color, then, learn the strategies to handle those people and you're going to protect yourself. You're going
yeah,
to be able to put those boundaries in. And that's something that I really like to look at with people I work with.
yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. So just coming back to the kind of self piece then, because I think a lot of people listening, watching, there probably are things right now that are kind of standing in their way internally, that are stopping them from maybe getting to that place that they want to get to next. Um, maybe we need to kind of look at, what help, advice could we give to someone that, well, firstly, I think as well, because it's not just like what's the solution, but how do you even work out like what it is that is getting in your own way as well?
Right. Oh, that's such a good question. We've not got another 3 hours, have we? Um, I mean, obviously, we'll all have our own tools that we do with deal with this, but I think it's just sort of that reflection that we've talked about before about
Mm,
recognizing when those feelings come up for you, to have that self-awareness to go, okay, I really struggle with self-belief, and it's not self-belief in my entire capability, it's in this part of my life or my work, because that's a really good clue. So just sort of do some analysis on when is it most at its worst for me, um,
mm,
with those obstacles that are holding me back. Because, like I say, we generalize very easily. We generalize that, okay, I'm not a confident person. I have a lot of
yeah,
self-doubt. Whereas actually, I can be really confident in loads of things, but it's this type
yeah,
of person, role, aspect to my job.
yeah,
Does that fit
yeah.
with your seeing and that you would work through?
Yeah, I mean, I think having the kind of the skill to be able to self-reflect, like
Mm.
giving yourself the space, I think like I would definitely echo that. I think also like sometimes just sharing as well, like not just reflecting yourself, but sometimes, actually saying those things out loud to someone else I think it needs to be the right person. It doesn't have to be a coach, doesn't have to be a mentor, but actually just argument, problem shared is a problem halved. I think like, I've been there myself where, when I look back a few years ago, the most difficult time in my career, and I chose not to share it. Like I didn't want to talk about it. I, I really internalized it. And actually, from personal experience, I know that's really quite dangerous when you don't like you're not actually processing it, because the problem is as well when you are truly stuck, your ability to self-reflect, it's quite difficult. It's difficult, often, being stuck, people that are stuck, they feel overwhelmed. They don't know the questions really to ask themselves. So I think like also, we both talk about self-reflection a lot, but you need to know what the questions are to ask yourself in the first place. And if your head's all scrambled because you've internalized everything, you're overthinking it, you're probably lying awake at night, you're not sleeping, so you're tired, and because you're tired, you can't think clearly. I think actually sometimes it's just difficult. It sometimes is difficult. That by itself might not be enough always. And so I think, yeah, I think there's a lot of power in like just having that conversation, but kind of just try and be intentional with like who you're sharing it with, and and why them, because I think, yeah, the right person to have that conversation with could really help you to move forward, but also sometimes people's response, um it's the opposite of helpful actually.
Mhm. Yeah, a lot of people, there's a lot to be said for being able to truly listen to somebody and to be able to
Mm,
actively listen. And it's not a skill that we all possess. We all have everyday listening, and then there's the more in-depth active listening. So sometimes when we do share, like you say, if somebody's not trained or in the right mindset to be able to support you, it can, like you say, make you feel like you're just not being seen. And I was saying
mm,
this in a workshop with a procurement team yesterday, like never underestimate the impact that being able to listen to your stakeholders can have. To be able to truly listen to somebody and help them with their problems can really go a long way, especially like in procurement as well, around the, needing to be validated and valued and
mm.
recognized as a function. We're worried about, them recognizing us. But I think, that, like you say, that actively listening to somebody can really go a long way. So I went into a more team basis thing there, but absolutely, like I say, when you share, um, it's important. Or when somebody shares with you, it's important to be able to receive it, isn't it?
Yeah, and I just think as well, like there's something about when you start talking about and with someone else as well, like it can just hold you a bit more accountable as well.
Mhm.
Even just the saying it out loud, sometimes it just makes it become more real and something that you just kind of feel that you want to and need to action for yourself. And so
Mm.
yeah, I think yeah, that would be my advice. Like there's a lot of people that I've worked with, and that they found things really, really difficult, really, really tough, really, really challenging. And like some of the time they've not shared with their own partner at home how they're really feeling. They can't share how they're feeling at work because of course you can't, because you need to show yourself as this strong, confident person with a smile on your face. Like actually, a lot of people are concerned that it's a sign of failure because things aren't working, or I'm not happy, therefore I've not succeeded in, you know, I should be happy, and I'm not happy, so that's a failure. And people they don't want to burden people, but they also don't want to necessarily show that what they maybe perceive as a sign of weakness, maybe as well. So I think there's so many different dynamics, but for a lot of people, like they've just kept this kind of feeling or these thoughts to themselves for quite a long time. And a lot of people have said like they have sat feeling really desperately unhappy with elements of the work they're doing, sometimes for years, years,
Yeah. Because it becomes the
and
norm. It becomes the norm. And it also, company culture's got a lot to answer for there as well. If you've got that
oh,
psychological safety to be able to talk about where you're unhappy. And obviously we all have things that happen to us outside of work as well, which can also impact
mm,
the way that we feel about what's going on. So yeah, I absolutely see that. I mean, in terms of obstacles, we've talked obviously about the internal, we've talked about the obstacles with other people. Is there anything else we'd like to leave people with for this episode?
I think in my world, probably one of the biggest, most common obstacles, and probably one of the very reasons why lots of people have chosen to come to me is, you know, over the last few years, we saw this kind of decline in the job market, not just in procurement, but, across not all areas, but many areas. And that that has been incredibly difficult for most and many people to navigate. And I think also we both work mainly with quite senior people. So also then you add into the mix that when suddenly this person has decided they're ready to move, or this redundancy restructure happens, like often they're at the most senior point of their career as well. And some of the time they haven't been on the market for a long time, and they've never been on the market as a director, as a head of, as a CPO. And actually, it's a very different process to secure those types of roles to what it is to roles that you probably secured earlier on in your career. So I think so yeah, to answer the question, one of the obvious external factors is this complex, challenging, volatile world that we're living in that has impacted the job market significantly. And it is really, really difficult. But we can't control some of those external factors. But even in a very difficult marketplace, people are still securing great roles. It's much harder. They're not always as obvious. You have to work way harder now to kind of come up with and create these kind of conversations and opportunities. But they are there, and sometimes, yeah, when you look at the market, it's like, oh, it feels really difficult and challenging. But like sometimes there's ways around that, I guess, and it's we can't control a lot of those external factors, but we can decide how we choose to, I suppose, how we choose to respond to them. And it's like the market is really difficult, it's really challenging. So how am I now going to adjust my strategy in order to maximise my chances in a really competitive, much more challenging marketplace? And I think that's the thing that I think a lot of people have found that very, very difficult, because they're doing all the things, they're applying for the roles, they're doing all the things that they did years ago, and suddenly it's not working. And that's the case across the board, by the way. Like most people are finding that how they would have gone about finding a job 2, 3 years ago, it's not working for them in the same way right now. Loads has changed. But it's some people stay doing those same things and keep doing the same things, and unfortunately find themselves in this awful spiral that they're doing all these things that aren't really working, and so their confidence is going lower and lower and lower. And so I think it's like really thinking like, how can I change my approach? What are the things that I can do? I can't really affect the external job market, but I can decide how I choose, like what I focus on and how I go about it. So I think, yeah, on that side, like that is a very real obstacle, challenge for a lot of the clients that I've worked with. Um, and a lot of them come to me and they're like, there are no jobs at my level, none. And then if I occasionally see one, don't get an opportunity to interview. And actually, through the work, they're discovering actually there are opportunities. They're just way harder to find than they ever were before. But there are lots of things that you can do for yourself in terms of how you show up, where you show up, what you're showcasing, that can open those doors and create some of those opportunities that aren't obvious in the first place. I feel like I've gone on a bit of a tangent with that. Well, not a tangent, but it's quite a lot there.
I think
But
it's just, like exploring those obstacles that they come across when they come to work with you, isn't it? I mean, it's interesting. I like what you say about the focus on what you can control, and I know that's probably been a common thread through all of our
yeah,
episodes. Actually, that's what we're trying to do is help our clients feel empowered, to choose,
mm,
because there is so much in the world that we can't control. And I think, what I would like to just emphasize is around the obstacles that I was talking about around other people and the obstacles that they find themselves up against in the business that might have then impacted their self-esteem. Again, we focus on what you can control in terms of the tools, like the tools to handle these people, because we can't control other people. We can't
yeah,
control how somebody chooses to communicate with us. What we can do is to focus on how we communicate with them and stay above the line, as it were, to encourage positive communication. So I definitely think that's the common thread between all of this, but obviously we tackle it in different ways and at different points of
Mm.
journeys, don't we?
Yeah, yeah. But I
So
think, the reality is we're all going to face lots of obstacles, aren't we? Like this world that we're in, it's going to be constant. And so I think like finding our way of recognizing what they are and then, having our own way, that my way might be different to your way, different to the next way, but we all need to discover for ourselves like what are our own internal ways of coping with these sometimes what feels like constant obstacles that are coming our way, but obviously some of them are internal, but it's like having a way of recognizing them and then being able to work out like how to overcome them and address them.
yeah, and one at a time, really, as well, and it has
Totally.
ripple effects and domino effects on the rest.
Yeah.
Thing is, it's always such a complex topic, isn't it? Because obstacles are unique to everyone. We obviously work with people to tackle those challenges, and I think it's always a privilege to work with someone to help them move through it and see actually and help them see what they are truly capable of. So, yeah,
Yeah.
thank you very much for discussing this one.
Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. Definitely make sure you're following the company page for Procurement Pivots, because there is probably a slightly different shift that's going to be happening going into the new year, and we'd love you to be part of it. So do follow along, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that as the time comes. But yeah, thanks once again for tuning in. It's great that you're all here with us, and we will see you soon.
Right, take care. Bye.
See you later. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Procurement Pivots. We hope today's episode gave you actionable tips to help you to continue to move forward in your procurement career.
If you enjoyed the conversation, follow our episodes, share them with others, and please support us on our social media channels for others that might be interested to tune in.